Hello, welcome back to Kulpable. We're getting started here with season 2. I'm hoping to do these a lot more often, but stuff goes awry when you're living the lifestyle I've been living. Most recently, we had a container home delivered, which sounds like a fun day, right? But it actually ended up being one of the worst, probably 10 days of my life. The home was not assembled. It is in hundreds of pieces. I had to pay out the butt the different crews that were here for the overtime, for the trucker's detention time. He had to go to a funeral, actually. That was fun. And I still need to bring back some crews with cranes and other heavy equipment to get this thing done. So that's not a great excuse, but it is why I haven't been here. So let's get into today's topic. We've all heard the popular expression that the bad craftsman blames his tools. And craftsman probably means like a woodworker or does something with their hands. And they would blame that they don't have the latest and greatest saw or something like that to get the job done. But we also intuitively understand that there are no piece of violins in our local symphonic orchestra. So what I wanted to try to figure out is, where does that transition take place between tools not really mattering and obviously maybe at some point they do? So I've been thinking about this a lot. And the summary is that when you're a beginner and maybe even into the intermediate stages, your tools don't matter because you are what's holding yourself back from that next level of performance. But at some point that changes and your tool holds you back, not you. And I have a first case example. This is something I've been experiencing for about 100 days now. And that is a pull-up challenge I committed to as a 100-day challenge. So from the end of September until just a week ago, New Year's, I committed to doing 50 pull-ups per day in my home gym or wherever I was any given day. And I filmed it, so I proved it, and I'll probably make a separate video about some other key learnings from that. But during that process, I started to feel that pull-ups, my strength or my performance, was starting to become hindered, not by me not sleeping or having the strength from the day before dissipate and regenerate, but literally the tool I was using to do the pull-up. So it started with sets of 3 and then sets of 5 and then sets of 10. That meant that I was the problem. I couldn't do more pull-ups because I didn't have the upper body strength because I messed up my rotator cuff. But then I traveled. I traveled a few times actually during the period. First I went to Vegas, and while in Vegas, I had to get a pull-up bar at my home over there. And I was able to rip the pull-ups a lot more easily than at home on my pull-up bar. And I started wondering why. Was this just adrenaline because I was traveling? Was I sleeping better? No. It's because the pull-up bar I had in Vegas was about 1.25 inches diameter, and my pull-up bar at my house is over 2 inches diameter. And that's going to affect how you can grip it and your sense of strength. Also, the pull-up bar at my home is sitting on top of a soft gym mat, which means every time I pull down on it, it's absorbing some of that force. So I'm essentially pulling down more than I would need to lift my body weight because the mat is accepting some of that pressure. And when I went to Vegas and I put it in a door frame that was more resistant and it was a smaller diameter, I was able to whip up and down a lot faster, and it almost felt like I was doing chin-ups and not pull-ups. It was weird. So I thought maybe that's a fluke. But then I traveled again, and then I traveled again. I traveled to Texas, I traveled to North Carolina, and in each place I bought a pull-up bar. In fact, in Texas, I was doing pull-ups directly on a door frame. So we're talking my fingertips were at the door frame. above the opening, and I was able to do pull-ups just as easily or more easily than using my pull-up bar at my house, my thick pull-up bar on the gym mat. So what's going on here? Well, at some point, I was held back by the tool and not held back by my personal ability, but my performance was held back. And what this tells us, or what this means, is that you can almost look at your dependence on a tool to do a job as an indicator of how good you are at that job. So as beginners, it doesn't matter if your guitar costs $100, because at the beginning, you're going to have to spend many, many hours switching between the chords quickly in between the beat, memorizing the formats, getting your fingers to contort in ways they haven't had to contort before. Your tool, which guitar, it just doesn't matter. But if we consider that we're generally bad at determining how good we are at things, we can instead zoom out a bit and say, okay, well, how much am I struggling to get this done? And does a different tool help me do it better? That can let us know we're over the hump of at least, let's say, the intermediate level. And I think if you want to put this another way, if you don't care about your tools at all for a given job, then maybe you aren't yet at a sufficient level of mastery in that job. Now, if you don't care about achieving mastery at something, then that's fine. I don't care about achieving mastery at ditch digging. So I have a couple shovels. One of mine I do use more often than the other. Actually, I have 4 shovels. One of them I use the most. It feels like a good tool, but there are obviously better shovels than that. However, I'm not held back in my ability to dig ditches because of the frequency of ditches I need to dig isn't very high. The depth of ditches I dig isn't very low, right? So I'm there where I can use any tool to dig a ditch and do just okay. But in other areas of my life, like let's say reading books or something, I want a certain quality level of coffee to not distract me as I'm reading or writing or thinking or journaling, and so on and so on. So you can look at how much you are dependent on tools to determine how good you are at the skill, because otherwise it's really hard to evaluate our skills. But I think most importantly, the implication that tools don't matter until they do is that we should beware the teacher who tells us tools don't matter. We expect our teachers to be the master, and masters know that tools matter. Think about it. Ciao.